The wind howled like a wild animal outside, rattling the windows of the old mansion. Tall, dark trees bent under its force, their branches reaching out like bony fingers. The air was thick with an unnatural cold, seeping into the walls, making everything feel damp and heavy. The mansion stood alone at the edge of town, hidden by overgrown ivy and tangled vines that seemed to whisper in the breeze. No one dared approach it. Its long-forgotten history was enough to send chills down anyone's spine. The locals called it the Blackwood Manor. It had been abandoned for years, yet rumors never died. It was said that each night, the spirits of those who once lived there, victims of a dark and tragic past, would come alive again. The mansion was a prison of their own making, where they relived their horrifying deaths, over and over, unable to escape. It was a story that had haunted Amelia for years. As a child, she'd heard the whispers about the manor, the mysterious disappearances, the bloodstains that never washed away, the sounds of screaming that drifted from the house in the dead of night. But she never truly believed it. That is, until she found herself standing at its doorstep one cold, fateful evening. Amelia had come to town to visit her grandmother, who had lived in a small cottage on the outskirts. After hearing so much about the house from her grandmother's cryptic warnings and local stories, Amelia felt drawn to it. She couldn't resist. But as she stood before the decaying front door, a sense of dread gnawed at her. The heavy door creaked open as she pushed it, revealing a dark, musty interior. Dust hung thick in the air, and the floorboards groaned under her weight. The once grand chandelier above hung in tatters, casting eerie shadows across the walls. It felt like time had stopped inside, like the house had been waiting for her. Curiosity pushed her forward. She couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching her. "Hello?" Her voice trembled as it echoed through the empty halls. No answer. She stepped cautiously into the living room. Her footsteps disturbed the silence. The large windows were broken, allowing the wind to moan through the cracks. The fireplace had long since turned cold, but the air around her felt unnaturally warm, like something was alive in the house, something waiting. As she explored, Amelia found strange marks on the walls. They looked like scratch marks, long and deep. She also found old, yellowed photographs of people she didn't recognize, their faces twisted in expressions of fear or pain. Something wasn't right here. But it wasn't just the objects that unsettled her. It was the feeling, like the house was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Her heart raced as she continued down the hall, toward the stairs. The air grew heavier with each step she took, thick with an unseen presence. Then, she heard it. A soft whisper. Almost inaudible, but unmistakable. "Leave." She froze. The voice came from the end of the hall. It wasn't her imagination. Someone, or something, was here with her. Amelia didn't dare to turn around. She took a step backward, but her foot hit something hard. Looking down, she saw a dusty old book, its pages worn and fragile. She picked it up carefully, brushing off the dirt. The cover was cracked, but the title was still legible, *, The Tragic History of Blackwood Manor Star. With trembling hands, she opened the book. The pages were filled with the dark history of the mansion. It told of the Blackwood family, who had once lived there, a wealthy couple and their 2 children. But the book also described the terrible night that had brought the family's downfall. A fire had ravaged the house, taking the lives of the family and their servants. But the book spoke of something more sinister, whispers of a curse. The fire hadn't been an accident. The pages described how the family had been murdered, trapped inside the flames. The house, it seemed, had never forgotten what had happened. It had been left to rot, but every night, the spirits of the Blackwood family and their servants were forced to relive their deaths, trapped in a never-ending loop of horror. As Amelia read, the whispers grew louder, until they were no longer whispers at all. The voices now filled the house, echoing off the walls. Leave now, but it was too late. A shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as a figure descended the staircase. It was a woman, pale and ghostly, her face twisted in pain and fear. Her clothes were torn, as if she had tried to escape the fire that consumed her, but she never had the chance. The woman's eyes locked onto Amelia's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Amelia couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The woman opened her mouth, but the words that came out weren't words at all. They were screams, screams of anguish and despair, frozen in time, desperate for release. Amelia tried to run, but the house seemed to shift, the walls closing in around her. She could hear more footsteps now, from all directions. Figures emerged from the shadows, each one a victim of the fire, each one caught in their own eternal torment. She ran through the halls, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the cold fingers of the spirits brushing against her skin. The house seemed to pulse with life, the air thick with the cries of the lost. Finally, she reached the front door, but it wouldn't open. The house had trapped her. The woman from the stairs appeared before her again, but this time, there was no pain in her eyes. Only emptiness. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping rapidly. Amelia could see her breath fogging in the air. "You shouldn't have come," the woman whispered, her voice hollow and cold. "Now you'll stay with us. Forever." And then, everything went dark. The next morning, the townspeople found Blackwood Manor as they always had, silent, lifeless. The door creaked open as they dared to peek inside, only to find it empty. But as they looked closer, they saw something strange. In the dust on the floor, there were two sets of footprints, one leading in, the other leading nowhere at all. No one dared to enter again. And from that day forward, the house stood even more still, as if it was waiting for another soul to wander into its cursed halls. The spirits of Blackwood Manor would never rest, and neither would anyone foolish enough to seek them out.